Alright, so now we got our Thunder Fist set up, well, the Galvanic Field. When we hit the enemy, our goal is now to basically let it do some damage over time on the target. So we're gonna have this thing over. You can see it's ticking for a decent amount. Like, right, like I'm not attacking. It's doing a decent amount of little chunks every once in a while.
Unusual.
Surprises.
Right, it's really good with these strong boxes, right? Watch this. So we'll kill a monster, and we'll have this Galvanic Field right here, right? And so as soon as these monsters spawn in, they're just going to die instantly to that Galvanic Field. Watch this with the Galvanic Field. So we're going to apply it to this enemy right here, right? All these enemies that come to us will just instantly pop because of the Galvanic Field. Alright, welcome back indeed. So, let's talk about some of the gear upgrades and different things that you can consider. Keep in mind, these are all optional. It's up to you on if you want to go ahead and grab these. But Thunderfist was one milestone for the build that I did want to hit, and the reason why is because it got a massive buff. Its socketed gems are supported by a level 30 added lightning damage. So what we're going to be doing with this, again, it's optional, as you guys saw from the gameplay. It's pretty cool. So what it does is, with our Galvanic Field, we're going to be able to almost have a secondary skill that's a lightning dot. Now, it's not a technical dot as in a damage over time, but it ticks on the enemy. So what we're doing with this is we're basically applying it to different enemies. So we're going to apply it. It's going to give us extra shock chance, but it's fine. We're going to be at 100 anyways. And then while the boss is in some sort of phase where maybe they spawn minions in, or just even on strong boxes or anything, you're going to be able to just get free extra damage in. Now, keep in mind, with this, you will have to kind of set it up as another skill. You can't have it, trigger socketed spell with this, unfortunately. I wish you could do it somehow with Thunderfist. That way, I don't even need to cast Galvanic Field. I could put Galvanic Field in here, and I was doing that before for extra shock chance, as well as getting extra power charges, but I've moved it on to the Thunderfist. This basically gives us a massive amount of extra damage here. So, what I have currently socketed in is going to be Galvanic Field, as well as I'm running Lightning Pen and Elemental Focus and Power Charge on crit. So the Power Charge on crit is going to not only work with this because it's going to continuously tick and deal damage, but it's also going to improve our damage on our arc. So it kind of does two different things. Even though this is a completely different skill, it still buffs itself with the Power Charges as well as our arc, which we can still just kind of use. Now, I wouldn't just activate Galvanic Field on every single monster that we kill. We're just using this for bosses, or if there's an arch nemesis, I'll activate it as well. But if you really want to make your damage go up even further, you could go ahead and run an Annihilating Light. There's something I'm just mentioning here because as you progress in the game, the bosses, they don't die in a couple seconds. Usually, most of the bosses will take a few minutes. It doesn't matter how good your build is. For the most part, getting a Maven or a Shaper done in 2 seconds is very, very, very difficult. One, some bosses have phases where it doesn't matter. You can hit for quadrillion, infinite amounts of damage. They have phases, so you have to do some damage, then they go away, and then they come back for your time to deal damage. It's just how kind of Path of Exile works in general. But I do want to mention some of the other things with this. So in terms of build upgrades, we really haven't gotten anything except for the Thunderfist that I want to mention. I'll link the POB. There's a lot better upgrades that we can technically get here. I just got to go ahead and look for them, but I needed certain numbers to go ahead and match up, so I got an extra ring. The reason why is because if you decide to run a 4-link setup in your Galvanic Field, you're going to be more pressured for your sockets here, so I just had to get a ring. If you want to, you can remove, if you were running trigger socketed spell when you use a skill, you could remove that craft on it, and then for specifically bosses, you can then cast Assassin's Mark. I'm lazy, so I just like the game to automate my stuff, and so that's the reason why I like it. I've also got a Hydrosphere in here, just so it activates, so we can apply exposure and just get some extra damage, and plus it just does extra ticks there. But in terms of actual upgrades that I've acquired, and keep in mind this is all up to you, I want to go and show you guys some other choices. If you don't want to play Galvanic Field, again, that's totally optional. If you don't want to use Thunderfist, that's optional. If you just want to continue using Arc, hey, play what you enjoy the most. So the meta for this league specifically, if you want to go increase your damage for specifically bosses, you can replace this chest piece with what's called Doryani's prototype. I know I've talked about it several times. It's a very expensive item, but that would be technically the last upgrade that is optional. And I say optional because some people don't want to just be a boss killer. sometimes people just want to farm maps. Just in general, I think farming the maps, just go in, alk your maps, and just go, is a lot more fun and enjoyable than getting certain boss mechanics, because you're going to have to purchase these items from players, then you're going to run the thing, and there's a huge RNG. Sometimes people like to pay for certain things to go into the boss fight and then hope something drops. For a beginner's guide, that can be a little bit difficult, but by all means, if you want to be a boss killer, Doryani's prototype, highly recommended. You're going to have to get stuff that has negative lightning resistance, but for the most part, I think just killing enemies and going to the boss, like, in a map, is pretty satisfying already, and it's a very low cost in the investment of entry, if that makes any sense. So that's why I really like Impulsos, and I'm probably going to be sticking with this, but Impulso's still like a decent item at the end of the day, and I do like it. It does give you some extra damage, but for the most part, this is great for doing more so speed content than boss content. Although the Thunderfish definitely help out, have a nice little mixture of it. But if you want to, you can still run the gloves. I actually still have them in my stash over here. The gloves that apply the lightning exposure and then the shock spread. These are still great. Now, if you do happen to get your Thunderfist on the lightning mastery in one of them, you do want to make it so the shocks you inflict spread, because you will be losing that on your gloves if you have kind of followed the guide and you got those gloves for specifically Impulso to have the shocks kind of spread to other enemies. But I had it in my gloves, so if you don't have it in your gloves, yeah, you're going to have to put it into the Lightning Master. It's a brand new one that came out in 3.19, so it's a great change as well. This is what allows this build to actually function here. But in addition to that, I completed, in the previous part I showed you guys, we did all 115 maps. If you want to do some challenges, you can do some more challenges. These give you free cosmetics, as you guys can see, if my golems would stop blocking. We have some wings over here that you can get. You can get a helmet. They almost kind of look like helmet wings here. And we also have the weapon effect and the character effect. You'll see like a little aura around us. If it would show you guys, you can see that there's little like shards that are coming up. I got all of the cosmetics. You can upgrade the tier of cosmetics if you want to push further, but I pretty much capped out on this league for my personal like enjoyment here in terms of the league mechanic. They said that they're also going to be nerfing the arch nemesis modifiers even more, but I still think that they need to buff the lake. I've been talking about that a lot. But in terms of other upgrades, if you want to, and I'm going to talk about this now, the meta right now is pretty much to use Orbis of Storm. So instead of using Arc, I would use Orbis of Storm to actually shock the enemy. Then instead of the Galvanic, you can move these around, but basically I would have two link setups. You could run Lightning Conduit. This is going to be one of the most powerful lightning skills. It hits the hardest, but it needs to shock the enemy. I don't really like how it works personally for my personal taste. And then there's also a concentrated effect. If you want to run this could actually help as one of your supports if you do run Lightning Conduit, because this is basically really good for boss killing. There's also overcharge support that I will also recommend if you want to have the shock value on bosses go really high. So what this does is it makes it so your skill will deal less damage, but it has increased chance to shock. We're already at 100% chance to shock regardless, so it doesn't really matter. But it makes it so the supported skills will shock as though dealing 700% more damage. This is going to cap you at that 65% a lot more frequently. Now, what Lightning Conduit does is it does additional damage based on the shock effect of the enemy. So what I was doing, I'll show you guys some gameplay over here of what I was doing, and this is the Orbis Storm. This is what would be considered the more meta way to play the build. Let me go ahead and share the screen. So this is where I'm running Overcharge in the Orbis Storm, but I want to show you kind of how it functions. I'm going to mute the audio here. So what we were doing is, again, Orbis Storm. This is kind of the meta way to play the game. So what you're doing is you're going to shock the enemy. Well, you can see it's going to hit. There we go. There's 63%. It will eventually go to 65 because it's based off of the hit, and sometimes these numbers roll. But what we're doing is we need to wait for the shock to go through, and then we make sure the shock is there, and then we basically activate our conduit. I felt like a lot of the times, because people were even running Echo, but technically how Orbis Storm works, if you use the lightning skill, it'll basically activate again. I didn't really like the playstyle. I was trying it out. I personally still prefer running the other build. This is, again, when I was using Orbs of Storms. I just like the Galvanic, but you can even map with the Orb as well. I was trying out the Orb. Here, let me go ahead and fast forward just to see if like it would work like good for like map clear. And here's like the gameplay from that. You can still see, because of Impulsa, we're still able to melt content. Like we just go up to it, bam. Again, on bosses in particular, I don't like how there's a delay in between shocking the enemy and then activating. A lot of these DPS things are kind of inflated because they're running spell echo, so keep that in mind in case you watch any other content creators videos and they're showing in the path of building it's doing this much DPS. The problem is that the lightning conduit will have to have the target be shocked in order for it to actually deal that massive amount of extra damage that you want to actually deal. But you can still see we're cleaning up content relatively fast, even without running the Galvanic, which I showed you guys in the intro. And some of the bosses I was fighting even without Thunderfist. I just like the Galvanic field the way it works. It's just a really cool thing because it gives us extra shock. And again, since we are getting some power charges, it can be used. It doesn't have to be in a Thunderfist, but it's just so I can play around with the new skills, because that was the whole point of like the whole entire build, is to basically try out some of the newer things. Now I do want to do things later with this build that are going to completely change it up, but a couple things that I wanted to go ahead and give you guys suggestions, as some of you guys came into the live stream. Shout out to you guys. You had some questions with the build and some other recommendations. So I've already mentioned it's great to have corrupted blood can't be inflicted on you on specifically a jewel. That could be great. You can also put it in your passive tree. There's some passives that you can get that can make you immunity to corrupted blood, because some of you guys mentioning that you were dying. This league, it's pretty hard, I'll be honest, with the Arch Nemesis, but you can also get some stuff where it makes it so corrupted blood cannot be inflicted on you. That's really good. But I also like to be completely immune. Again, this is something that I've mentioned before time and time again when people look at these DPS, like best DPS builds over on PoE.Ninja, and it's a great tool, and I still recommend you guys to use it. However, a lot of these builds will not be able to survive. When you guys look at like my build, I'm going to have a lot more survivability because it's a beginner's guide. Later, if you want to, you could completely drop this. A lot of players that are just shooting for the highest DPS, you can drop Bastion of Elements. You can pick up Hard Destruction. If you want, you can even pick up Shaper of Storms just to get even more damage. But because it's a beginner's guide, I always try to make it really good in the survivability department. But again, if you want big boss DPS, Doryani's prototype is a highly recommended. However, it's very expensive for this league because, well, a lot of people want to play Lightning this league because it's brand new, myself included though. But if you really want to increase your DPS for bosses, you can consider Annihilating Light. This is a very cheap item. It will reduce your resistances, but that's the trade-off that you do make for it. If you want to, you can also run Herald of Thunder. You can run other auras to get more damage. Zealotry can be excellent, but I like to have survivability. Like right now, I'm running Determination. Other things that my build has had, and what I actually want to do is run this Stormfire that has bleeding can't be inflicted on you, but I have a belt that says you can't be ignited. I also picked up a Kikazaru ring for relatively cheap if you want to grab one of these yourself. It's going to be maybe a little bit difficult to get both of these rolls on it, but I did pay 50 Chaos Orbs for these. This is kind of nice. It has you can't be ignited or it cannot be bleeding can't be inflicted on you. So these are both great mods. Getting both these is kind of more so rare, but you can get, again, one of them on your ring, and then specifically can't be ignited on belt if you want to be bleed and ignite immune, which I think is really good because this build, the whole goal is to be immune to basically most of the mechanics. One thing that I do want to mention with Kikazaru is on the Pantheon, you can get the Pantheon over here called the Soul of Yugioh, which gives us extra curse reductions. We have 30% reduced effect of curses on us. We have also another 60% here, and then on one of my jewels that I got that also has corrupted blood, and I picked this up for relatively cheap. It unfortunately doesn't have life, but trying to get life on any jewel with like corrupted blood immunity, those get very, very expensive. But this was relatively cheap, and it had some resistances, nothing really too big other than the 10% reduction here. So the reason why I actually wanted to get curse immunity, and you can pick up a Kikazaru, just a blank one with just like cannot be bled for relatively cheap. The whole cannot be ignited, that gets a little bit pricey, but just get it on your belt and you'll be good to go. But this belt is actually terrible. I just literally needed it for the dexterity. That's the only thing that this belt has, and the socket that's in it is terrible. But the reason why I'm going to mention this, because it's a beginner's walkthrough and like it's a new player's guide. This league is very hard. I'm sure if you literally look on Twitter, people are still complaining about the Arch Nemesis mobs being too hard. One thing that's very important is we have 100% reduced effect of curses on us. So what happens now with the Arch Nemesis that's what I feel like is unfair, they can mark you permanently. So to basically kind of get around that, you can just go for some sort of curse immunity or reduce effect of curses on us. So then we can run maps that have curses like on the map, and I just ignore it. It's like, whatever, I don't care. But there is a way to get rid of, if there is a monster that hits you with a mark that's relatively permanent. They have just mentioned that they changed it, so if you are far away from it, it will then remove itself. But I don't know how far you have to be away from it, and certain times you just don't want to like move because you just want to kill it, right? So what I've done just to get around it is I'm just running this ring. Now, eventually what a lot of people do once they hit a certain threshold of a level, they will just unspec out of a bunch of life nodes to get as much damage as possible just to kill things. Now, this is a legitimate, valid strategy where they will run cast on death portal, so then if they die, they just go right back in. So they will lower their life to, let's say, like 4k, right? They'll remove a bunch of life nodes, get more damage nodes, and get to try to be as fast as possible. And that's an option that you could consider as well. Again, if you want to reduce your resistances or whatever the case may be, because you are playing Elementalist, having the ability to have this Primal Aegis really helps out too. But keep in mind, you can decide for yourself what is your end game, but I'm pretty much satisfied with the build. I mean, you can do pretty much most of the things in this game with this build, but if you do want to kill bosses faster, Prototype is again be a recommendation. I haven't really changed anything, but I'm just going to mention the sockets over here. If we do want to min-max this build a little bit more, I'm still running the same shield. I bought this for I don't remember how many chaos. It wasn't even anywhere near divine. But if you want to get a really good shield, I could recommend getting a shield that specifically has recover life percent when blocked. You want 5% as the max number, and also socketed gems have increased reservation efficiency. In addition to that, you can get a helmet that not only has arc change additional time, but if you want to play Lightning Conduit or whatever you want to play, feel free to go ahead and change that the enchantment on it. But you can get reduced mana reservation efficiency, so you can get I believe you can get 9% as one of the grand. You could technically go even further, but that costs a lot more. But then you can also throw on essences or just buy a helmet that has reduced mana reservation efficiency. You can get upwards of almost like 20% reservation efficiency if that's what you want to do. And if you want to make your character even tankier, you can consider even adding Grace to your build. But this is like, we're talking min-max. You're going to have a lot of reservation efficiency if you want to throw in Grace with this build. But that would make the build way tankier if that's the route that you want to go. If you want way more damage, you can do a lot of different things. Keep in mind, there's always going to be some sort of potential give and take, but again, Doryani's Prototype, highly recommended, and then you're going to have to get things with negative resistances on all of your pieces of gear. It's just a lot of progression here. There's sometimes with some builds you can scale again and again, but that's pretty much where I want to wrap it up for this part of our video. And next time, I actually might show off what I want to do with this, because I'm going to completely change this character. It's going to be kind of cool, but do what you want to do with this. Like I said, I've already done 115 maps to show you guys with this exact build, and if you do want to get some cosmetics, it's possible for the most part. In terms of like, these are free cosmetics, by the way, all the things, even this little like the footprints, that's something that was also free for this 3.19 lake. But there's also another thing I want to mention, because some of you guys did ask some questions. So if you're having problems with dexterity, because like I got pretty lucky and I got dexterity on my weapon here, but like I said, I still needed dexterity, so I ended up getting this belt that had literally dexterity. I could easily replace this. It should have like a bunch of resistances, plus life and chaos res. But you can get one of these jewels and throw it in your tree. You can also just get it on your rings. There's also a pretty cool ring called Valako's Sign. It's in a lot of top builds as well on the PoE Ninja website. So what this gives you is extra chance to shock, but it also gives you some damage, and on top of that, 1% of damage leached as life against shocked enemies. So it gives you some bounce back, lets you stay in AoE against bosses and just keep on attacking. Hey, that's up to you. You can see I have Grace ready here because we're going to be doing something later. If you guys are having mana problems, Arcane Surge is a great support skill. You don't have to run Lightning Pen, but like in terms of the things that I'm running, Inspiration, Arc, increased crit damage, Lightning Pen support, increased critical strikes, and awaken added lightning damage. This is a little bit pricey if you want to buy it when it's level. You want to get it to level 5, but just added lightning damage is totally fine. However, I do want to mention, with the Thunder Fist, do not put Awaken added lightning damage. It will overwrite the socketed gems are supported by it. So keep in mind, you can't like double up on them. That would be pretty interesting though if you could. But yeah, this is already going to be way higher than this. But what this offers is the +1. The +1 at specifically level 26 of Arc, which we could eventually get via, like, you can get extra gem levels in the chest by 8 implicit, you can corrupt it, or I can technically go for a +3 here, or I can get a shield that has a +1. That gives our Arc an additional chain time. Right now it's set up for 9, because it says it's plus 8 times, but it will go up +1 because of our enchant, and then on top of that we get another +1 off of the skill tree. That is another option just to min-max just even further if that's the route you want to go. Again, you don't have to run Arc, you don't have to run Galvanic. I'm just giving you guys suggestions and showing you guys gameplay that literally you could do whatever you want with this build in terms of light. It has to be lightning damage though, and pretty much whatever skill that you want to throw in. I've been like I said, I was kind of testing out other ones. This is the one that I like. I like just activating this and then I hit something. Oh, there's that Wave of Conviction because I have it as an auto cast just for exposure. But yeah, just other suggestions here. Going to be running Stormfire later for our lightning damage being able to ignite because I want to do something cool with the Aura Sacrifice, but that's a topic for another day. I feel like I'm ranting now, but anyways, thanks for tuning in, guys, and hopefully you'll have some fun with this. Again, great website, PoE Ninja, and I'll link my POB as of right now, but keep in mind, you can run this ring if you want to be curse immune, because that was something that is pretty important in this league, again, for the marks. But yeah, we'll do some more changes to the build later down the line. But anyways, thanks for tuning in. Drop a like on your way out, and I'll see you guys in another video very soon. Take care. Peace.